Hello, in this video, I'll show you how to edit your studio photos and make them better in comes Photoshop. And in case you want to download the raw image, follow along and practice with this tutorial simply, check the link in the video description. And also to download the snoot effect used later on in the tutorial, check the link in the video description as well. So after importing the raw image, it is going to open up in Camera Raw. So in Camera Raw, we just want to correct the lighting and contrast issues first of all. So I'll just come to my light panel or option in Camera Raw. And first of all, correct the shadows and brighten up the shadows slightly and take the whites down. I'll also do the same for the highlights, just like that. Then I'll add a tiny bit of contrast and take the blacks down. So I'll just open up the shadows even more and slightly open up the exposure of this very photo. Once I'm done doing that, I'll simply come and open the image in Photoshop by clicking on the open option to open the photo when it comes to Photoshop. So in Photoshop, the very first thing we want to do is first of all doing our skin retouching on this very image. So in order to do the skin retouching, we are simply going to come and create two copies from the background layer by dragging and dropping on the new layer icon and create those two layers. Name this to color, and we're going to name the upper layer to texture. So after renaming these two layers, we're just going to come to the color layer, select the color layer, turn off the texture layer, come to filter, blur, come to Gaussian blur, take the radial slider down, click on the skin area and blur out the skin textures. So move the radial slider and stop at the point whereby the details on the skin are just starting to disappear. So I'm just going to leave this to around 2.7. I'll click OK. Then I'll come to the texture layer now, activate it or turn it on. Come to image, apply image. The source is the name of the photo that we're editing in this case. Under layer, select color layer, channel RGB. Blending has to be set to add because this is a 16-bit image. The scale is 2, offset 0, opacity 100%, preserve transparency and mask cannot check, and turn on the invert option, and you'll see the image turn into gray. So in case you're editing an 8-bit image, these are settings that you have to use. After selecting the color layer, channel is RGB, ensure invert is not turned on, blending has to be subtract, the scale is 2, offset 128, and you'll basically have the same results. So for our case, this is 16-bit. We have to revert the settings to 16-bit settings and click OK. Change the blend mode from normal and change it all the way down to linear light. Then select both layers, then press Command G, or you can use Ctrl G to group these two layers. So you can rename this to frequency separation. After renaming this, hit enter. Then just come and open up the group, select the color layer. And after selecting the color layer, we are going to come to the brushes and get the Mr. Brush tool. And for the settings of the Mr. Brush tool, we're going to be using the hardness of 0. Clean brush is selected. Then this second option, that is clean brush after each stroke, is selected. The weight is 9%, load 75, mix is 90, flow is 100%. Ensure that sample all layers is not checked. So once you're done doing that, it is time to start brushing on the skin. So ensure that you turn off the texture layer so that you can see where to blend well. So you can zoom in by using Command plus on the keyboard, or you can use Ctrl plus on the keyboard. Slightly zoom in and don't zoom all the way in. So start brushing. So mix the midtones alone, the highlights alone, and the shadows alone. So you can see I'm blending, and you have to follow the direction of the skin of the subject. So a highlight is just there, blend the highlight. Reduce on the size to blend on a small area. To reduce on the size of the brush tool, you can use the square bracket keys on the keyboard. So that is what I have to use to reduce on the size or increase on the size of the mixer brush tool. So blend on the face area, don't forget the neck. So right now we are doing skin retouching and you're trying to blend the transitions between the colors on the skin or the skin tones of our model or our subject in this case. So I'll come to the lower part of the body and blend. So you can see the hand is moving in this direction. I have to also follow that direction to blend the tones on the hand or the arm. So blend like that. So for the leg, it is moving from up to down. So I'll blend the shadows on the leg like this. Blend those shadows and increase on the size to blend the midtones right here. And you can see how you're going to be achieving this to get a smooth skin for our subject. So blend the highlight just like that. So I'll continue blending all the transitions between the skin color, and in this way it is going to make the skin tone look nice and smooth. So blend, and as you're seeing, I'm not zooming all the way in because when you zoom all the way in, you can't be able to see the uneven skin tone transitions on the model's skin. That is why I always recommend that you retouch or you smoothen at a distance, and in this way you can see every uneven skin color transition in the image, and you can blend it using the mixer brush tool. So just come and turn on the texture layer, and let's see what I've been able to achieve for this process. You can see before, after, before, after. Now that the skin has been smoothened, it is time to come to the texture layer and remove the blemishes or pimples. Select the texture layer, get the clone stamp tool, and make sure hardness is 0, soften brush is selected, the mode is set to normal, opacity at 100%, flow at 100%, and align is checked, and the sample is set to current layer. Now we have to zoom in to see or identify the blemishes to remove them. So to remove a blemish, for example this one, ensure that the size of the clone stamp tool is slightly bigger than the pimple or the blemish that you want to remove. Then hold down the option key on the keyboard. So you can increase or reduce on the size of the clone stamp tool by using the open and close square bracket keys on the keyboard. So to remove a pimple, ensure that the size is big enough to cover the pimple or the blemish. Hold down the option key on the keyboard and click on a clean area. Alternate, then click on a clean area near the pimple or the blemish, and simply click once again over the blemish to remove it after releasing the option key on the keyboard. So option, I'm just going to go through this once again. So to remove a pimple, reduce on the size, make sure it is small enough to cover or remove the pimple. Option, click on a clean area near the pimple, release the option button, and click once again to cover the pimple with clean skin. So that is basically what you have to do while you are trying to remove the pimples or blemishes from the model's skin. So I'll remove all these unwanted blemishes and pimples from the model's skin. So you can see right now we are perfecting the textures. So once we're done perfecting the textures and now we have a better looking kind of image, we are going to go straight into the next step. So in case you want to do a little bit of skin tone matching or color grading, we're just going to do a tiny bit of that by first of all creating a stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Option Command E, Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard, create a stamp visible layer. Come and create a new empty layer. Change the blend mode from normal, change it all the way down to color. Come to the layer that we created initially before. Come to select and come to subject, and Photoshop is going to help us to automatically select the edges of the subject. And as usual, come back to this layer because it is on this layer that we want to do the color grading on the skin color or the skin tones. Then you're going to come and get the brush tool, and for settings, make sure soft-round brush is selected, the hardness set to 0, the mode is set to normal, opacity in the flat 100%. You're just going to zoom in. So look for that area that has the skin color or the skin tone that you prefer in this case. So for this, I'll use the first as a reference point. I'll press the option key on the keyboard to sample the color of my choice. Option, and click on the color of my choice and start painting. So I feel like that is too orange. Option and click on the color of our choice and start painting the color all over the image or all over the model's skin or face. So I'm just going to paint this color over her skin like that, and you can see as you're painting, the skin is now turning to look a little bit nice, even and uniform. So make sure that you have painted majority of the areas like that have or contain skin color or skin tones in this case. But we're going to be perfecting this even more in case the results are not desirable for your liking. So I'm just going to come the lower part of the body, and by just doing this, I'm just going to paint quickly on the model's skin like this. Paint, 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 paint. So click and hold down to paint and click, paint. Whether you just have to click and you paint the color. Click and move your brush in a given direction to paint a given color. But I'm not going to brighten her legs because brightening some areas is going to remove the initial intention for this kind of portrait. So I was going for that kind of dramatic kind of lighting for this very shoot. That is why some areas are going to be left dark intentionally. So I'm just going to zoom in even more to see on a very small area and paint like that. So you can see some areas were not included as part of the selection. Then you're going to perfect those later on in this video. So you can press Ctrl D or you can use Command D to deselect the active selection and get a very small brush and paint on the areas you feel may have been left out during the selection of the subject, just like this. So we shall come to the lower part right here and try to paint all those areas that may have been left out during the subject selection by Photoshop. So once you're done painting on majority of those areas, there are those areas whereby the colors were spilling to maybe the outfit. Get the eraser tool, and with the eraser tool selected, simply come and rub away that. And for the settings of the eraser tool, the mode is brush, opacity at 100%, flow at 100%, and erase color from the areas that you don't want the effect to be regarding the skin tone color. So erase it from this area of our outfit, come to this color area and try to erase the effect from that area too. So I'm just going to zoom in. So after I've painted majority of the area, so in case you miss out a given area, press B for the brush tool and you can correct or paint colors in areas that you may have missed out during the painting process. So once you're done painting our color grading on the skin, you can simply come and reduce on the color intensity by coming to the opacity of the color grading and simply reduce or drop down the opacity of the color grading. It's about 71. So in case the color is not appealing to you, you can come and create a hue and saturation adjustment layer and simply come, make sure you select the reds, come to the hues. In case the skin is looking too reddish or greenish, you can play around with the hues to see the color that works best for you. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit of greens to the skin tone and you can see before and after. So in case the skin is looking too orange and you don't want that, just come to the lightness and reduce on the lightness of the reds, just like that, and that is going to reduce on the amount of oranges within the skin tone. So this is what we have been able to achieve. So for the next step, we're just going to create another stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Option Command E, Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard to create a stamp visible layer. By the way, a stamp visible layer is more of a merged layer for everything that we have below here. Shift Option Command E for Mac, Shift Alternate Control E for Windows. So after creating a stamp visible layer, it is time to work on the background in this case. So in order to work on the background, we are simply going to come and get our spot healing brush tool and simply paint on whatever we want to eliminate. So I'm just going to paint over that beauty dish to eliminate it, or this kind of strip box, and paint over it to try to eliminate it or remove it from our image, and this kind of reflector in this area. So for whichever areas that you want to remove or clear away from the image, simply click and paint over them, and the spot healing brush tool is going to do a perfect job sometimes, and sometimes it may not be able to do a perfect job. So you can see this is what we have right now. So to try to smoothen out the effect, you can as well come and get the brush tool. So just get the normal brush tool and use a flow of about 56. Then sample color and start painting that color over the backdrop to have a slightly even color in some areas. So for example, this area, hold down the option key on the keyboard and click to sample, option click, and paint over that area that you feel has an even color in some areas. So I prefer this kind of gradient look on the image. That's why I'm not going to paint the color in all the areas of the image. I just want some areas to have this kind of nice gradient. So I'm just going to come to the lower part of the image and sample and try to remove all those dirty areas from the lower part of the image. So you can now come and get the mixer brush tool and ensure that it's clean, and you can try to blend those areas that have a little bit of the dark patches, and you can use the same technique to smoothen your studio background or backdrop in Photoshop. So just paint on those areas that you feel have unwanted colors in your image. So like I said, I'm not going to eliminate every color that is uneven. So I'm just going to also paint on this prop that she's seated on. So you can now zoom in and try to eliminate it or remove all these dirty or small areas in the image. Just by doing this, you can see that the colors are now looking nice and the background looks better than where we started. So you can see the before and after for just the backdrop cleanup, and the image now looks better. So in order to even transform this image, we are simply going to add a kind of snoot effect to our studio backdrop. So in order to add that effect, you're going to first of all create a copy from this layer by pressing Command J, or you can use Ctrl J on the keyboard. And after that, simply come to select and come and select the subject. And Photoshop is going to help us select the edges of the subject. But remember, you also need this to be part of the selection, because sometimes you may want the effect to go behind these boxes that she's seated on. So get the quick selection tool, ensure it is on the plus icon to add a selection, and you can make sure that it is on the minus icon to subtract a given selection. So I'm just going to paint there like that to add that to my selection. So in order to subtract a selection, I'll simply come and hold down, or you can get the minus tool and click to subtract a given selection from your image. So after that, you're just going to come and just going to Command Z to undo. So to add the selection, just click like that, click. So I'm just going to come other areas and ensure that every area has been worked on or selected quite well. You can see the area of the earring right here. We just want to subtract this selection. Get this minus tool and click our way to subtract that selection just there. And you can see right now we have had a perfect selection for the subject. So we just want to copy and paste the subject on a brand new layer. Press Command C to copy, or can use Ctrl C, and press Command V, or can use Ctrl V to paste the subject on a brand new layer. And as you can see, our subject is now on a brand new layer. Come and select this layer behind the subject layer, because we want to place the effect behind the subject that is on top. So just come to the snoot effect, and like I said at the start of the video, the snoot effect is going to be in the description, so download it. So after that, I'm just going to choose this effect, get the rectangular marquee tool and click on the edges and drag down to make a selection of the snoot effect. So ensure that you make a good selection by starting on the black corner and select within the black selection or the black square. Then press Ctrl C to copy the selection. Come to the image with this layer selected, the layer below the subject, then press Ctrl V, or you can use Command V to paste our effect. Once we're done pasting our effect right there, we are just going to first of all right click and come to Convert to Smart Object, because we want to be able to change the values later on after applying them on the snoot layer. Then press Ctrl T, or you can use Command T and hold down the Option key on the keyboard, and you can resize the snoot effect. So you can just resize the snoot effect just like that. Or you can move it to whatever you want. So I just prefer it to be somewhere on the side or somewhere to the side like this. Then press Enter to place the snoot effect. Then to remove this black line, simply change the blend mode of the snoot effect from normal to screen, or you can even use lighten. So whichever you prefer. So I'm just going to be using screen. So after changing the blend mode, you can see this looks unnatural. So just come to filter, come to blur, come to Gaussian blur, and after that just come the radius and move up the radius to try to fade this snoot effect so that it looks a little bit more natural and realistic. So I'm just going to leave it around 36. Looks okay. So by just adding this, we have been able to transform this very image. So after doing this, the next step is simply going to be, you can even add color by coming and creating a hue and saturation adjustment layer. Then click on this clipping mask icon to clip the effect so that the effect can affect the snoot effect alone and not the overall image. Just come and click on colorize, and you can see as soon as you click on colorize, it is going to color or add color to our snoot effect. Then you can come and play around with the colors to see what works best for you, or you can even increase on the saturation to increase on the intensity of the snoot effect in this case. So I'm just going to go with about here so that it can blend well with the overall image. So depending on what you want, do what you want as a creative or as a photographer. I feel like this also looks cool, so I'll go with this kind of color, and you can reduce or increase on the intensity of that given color. So I'm just going to move this towards this side. I feel like this is better. So after doing that, we are just going to color grade the image even more to look better. So we are going to come and click on the subject layer. Then we are going to create another stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Option Command E on the keyboard, Shift Alternate Control E to create a stamp visible layer. So once you create the stamp visible layer, you won't be able to change the values of the snoot effect that you have created. So just come, selective color, come to the blacks, because I feel like the blacks have a little bit of reddish tint to them. So I'll just come to selective color, target the blacks, and come the cyans and move the cyan slider towards the right hand side. And this is going to try to remove that kind of tint from the blacks of the image. And you can come to also the whites of the image, and we make the whites a little bit better by removing this kind of yellow tint from the white. So you can see by moving this towards the left hand side, we are removing yellows from the whites of this very image. So this is what we have been able to achieve in this kind of video. You can see before, after, before, after. Once you're done doing that, you can even make the image better by adding skin glow or skin shine to the model skin by creating a curves adjustment layer. Then simply scroll down and click on this pointer, move it towards the left hand side, and stop at the point whereby only the highlights on the skin are overexposed. Then you can simply right click on the curves layer, come to the blending options. Yeah. And after coming to blending options, make sure blend if is set to gray, come to underlying layer and click and drag this from affecting the overall image, and stop at the point whereby only the highlights on the skin are showing in this case. After that, I'm just going to hold an Option key on the keyboard and split this effect up to when the effect is blending well into the skin. I'm just going to come and click on OK. Then press Ctrl I, or you can use Command I on the keyboard to invert the effect and get the brush tool, the normal brush tool. The mode is normal, opacity and flatter 100%. I'm just going to zoom in, and paint over the model's skin or the highlights on the model's skin. I know this looks a little bit off, it looks awkward, but we can come back and we perfect the skin glow or skin shine. Can even add the glow to the lips. So just paint on the areas you feel should have this kind of skin glow or skin shine on the model skin, command minus. So after this, just come the opacity and reduce on the overall opacity so that the effect can look natural and realistic. So 42 before after. So after this, let's whiten the eyes. Come adjustments, create a hue and saturation adjustment layer. Make sure master is selected, then simply come to the saturation, reduce on the overall saturation of the image to around -78. Press command I to invert or hide the effect. Then you can simply come to the eyes and simply get a brush tool. Ensure white is the top color or foreground color. You can reset in case you have any color that is not black and white by clicking on the tiny swatches. Then simply paint over the eyes to whiten the eyes of the subject. You can use the same technique for teeth whitening. So I'll use command minus to zoom out. So let's see what we have been able to do for this very image regarding the skin retouching and everything we have been able to edit. So you can see this is the image before and this is our after, before, after, before, after. So this is how you can edit and transform your studio photos when it comes to Photoshop. And in case you want to save or export this very image, simply come to File, Export, come to Export As, and it's going to open up the Export As window right here in Photoshop. Under Format, ensure the format is set to JPEG, quality to the maximum, which is 7 for this case. The resample has to be set to bicubic sharper, and scroll down to where you see color space. Ensure the color space is set to convert to sRGB, and embed color profile have been checked, and click on export to save or export the image in whatever location that you wish or want. So this is how you can edit and transform your studio photos from the start to the very end. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Don't forget to keep practicing and as well keep creating.